Here is something that could have already taken your home, and you would have had absolutely no idea it was even legal. Right now, millions of Americans, people who own their homes, people who have worked for decades to pay off their property, are sitting on a ticking time bomb. And until a stunning, unanimous Supreme Court ruling changed everything, that bomb was already going off in cities and counties all across this country. We are talking about a system that legally allowed the government to take your house, sell it, and keep every single dollar of profit, even if you only owed them a few $100s in back taxes. Not thousands, not tens of thousands, a few $100s. And they could keep it all. Most people have never heard about this. The mainstream news barely touched it, but this Supreme Court decision, 9 justices, 0 disagreement, a unanimous 9-0 vote, changed the law in all 50 states. And if you own property, if you have a family member who owns property, or if you ever plan to own property in this country, you need to hear every word of what I'm about to tell you. And before we go any further, if this is your first time on this channel, I want you to hit that subscribe button right now. This channel exists for one reason: to make sure people like you, hardworking Americans who deserve to know what's really happening, never get caught off guard again. Every week we break down legal changes, government decisions, and financial updates that directly affect your life. The kind of updates most people only find out about when it's already too late. So subscribe, turn on that bell, because missing one video on this channel could genuinely cost you. Now, I need you to understand something before we go deeper into this story. This video is not about politics. It is not about whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. This is about your property, your money, your constitutional rights, and a practice that was happening quietly, almost invisibly, in states all across America for years and years. If you are watching this on your phone right now while you're doing something else, I need you to put everything else down. Because this information is the kind of thing that, once you hear it, you will want to share it immediately. You will think about a neighbor, a parent, a brother or sister who needs to hear this. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what happened, exactly what changed, and exactly what you need to do to protect yourself. Tell one person about this video before you even finish watching it. That's all I ask. Because this could genuinely save someone's home. Welcome to this channel, the place where we cut through the noise and give you the real information that affects real American lives. We track Supreme Court decisions, federal and state law changes, Social Security updates, property rights rulings, and financial alerts that the big media networks gloss over or ignore completely. Our community is made up of people who refuse to be kept in the dark. People who want to be one step ahead. If that's you, then you are exactly where you need to be. Now let's get straight into it, because what I am about to tell you is both shocking and absolutely real. The case is called Tyler versus Hennepin County, and it started with one elderly woman in Minnesota named Geraldine Tyler. Geraldine was 93 years old. She had owned a condo in Minneapolis for years. But in her later years, she moved into a senior living community and was no longer able to keep up with her property taxes on the condo. Now, over time, she fell behind. The amount she owed? Approximately $15,000 in unpaid property taxes, interest, and fees. That's it. $15,000. But here's where the story turns dark. Really dark. Under Minnesota state law at the time, and laws just like it existed in many, many other states, the county had the power to seize her condo, sell it, and keep 100% of the proceeds. Not just the $15,000 she owed, every single dollar. The county sold her condo for $40,000. They kept all $40,000. They paid off the $15,000 in back taxes, kept the remaining $25,000 in profit, money that belonged to Geraldine Tyler, and they said that was completely legal. Let me say that again so it fully lands. A 93-year-old woman lost $25,000 of her own equity, money she had built up in her own home over decades of ownership, because of a $15,000 tax debt. And the government said, that's the law. You might be thinking, surely she could fight that? Surely there was something she could do. And that is exactly what she did. Geraldine Tyler, at 93 years old, took Hennepin County, Minnesota all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And when those 9 justices voted on her case, not one of them, not a single one, sided with the government. 9-0. Unanimous. A ruling that sent shockwaves through every courthouse, every county government office, every state legislature in America. Now here is why this matters far beyond one elderly woman in Minnesota. Because what happened to Geraldine Tyler was not unique. Not even close. This same legal system, this same practice of taking homes, selling them, and keeping all the proceeds was happening in roughly 12 states that had what are called home equity theft laws on the books. And millions of Americans who owned property in those states were vulnerable, completely vulnerable. And most of them had no idea. We are talking about states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Nebraska, South Dakota, Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, and several others. In those states, if you fell behind on your property taxes, the government did not just have the right to seize your property, they had the right to walk away with everything. Your equity, your savings locked into that home. All of it. Now think about the kind of people this was hitting hardest. Not wealthy property investors who have accountants watching every bill. We are talking about elderly homeowners on fixed incomes who missed a few payments. People going through a medical crisis, widows and widowers who suddenly had to manage finances alone after losing a spouse, military veterans, people who had a bad year, fell behind, and didn't fully understand the consequences. These are real people. And in many of these states, it wasn't just counties doing this, it was also private investors. Because those same laws allowed counties to sell the tax debt to private companies, who would then foreclose on the home and keep the profit. So you had private investors, sometimes billion-dollar investment funds, legally taking working-class Americans' homes and pocketing their equity. One analysis found that over a period of roughly a decade, hundreds of millions of dollars in home equity was stripped from ordinary American homeowners through this process. Hundreds of millions of dollars, gone legally. That is the scale of what we are talking about. So let's break down exactly what the Supreme Court said, because the ruling itself is important, and it's actually written in a way that you can understand without being a lawyer. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the opinion, and he made it crystal clear. The ruling says that under the Takings Clause of the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution, the government cannot take more from you than what you owe. The Fifth Amendment says, and this is important, that private property cannot be taken for public use without just compensation. And the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that when the government seizes a home worth $40,000 to pay a $15,000 debt and keeps the difference, that is a taking. That is the government enriching itself at your expense. And that is unconstitutional. It doesn't matter what any state law says. It doesn't matter if it's been done that way for generations. The Constitution is the supreme law of this land. And the Supreme Court just reminded every government in every state of that fact, loudly, clearly, and unanimously. Here's where it gets really serious. This ruling didn't just apply to Minnesota, it applied everywhere. Every state, every county, every township. The moment that ruling came down, any law in any state that allowed home equity theft became unconstitutional. Every state had to reckon with what this meant for their existing property tax laws. And anyone who had already had their equity stripped through this process, they potentially had a legal claim. Think about that for a moment. People who lost their home equity years ago to this practice may now be able to go back and fight for compensation. This is not a small thing. This is a massive shift in American property law. Now, you might be wondering, how did this even become legal in the first place? How does something this obviously unfair become law in more than a dozen states? That is a great question, and the answer is uncomfortable. The truth is, these laws were often written quietly without much public attention over many decades. Property tax collection is a boring subject. Nobody holds rallies about property tax enforcement procedures. Nobody makes it the front page story. So these laws were written, passed, and enforced. And most homeowners never knew what they had signed up for when they bought property in those states. In many cases, the laws were lobbied for by the very investors who profited from them. Companies that specialized in buying up tax debt knew exactly what they were doing. They targeted vulnerable homeowners, often elderly, often minority, often low income, because those homeowners were less likely to have the resources or knowledge to fight back. One report from a civil rights organization found that in certain cities, a disproportionate number of the homes seized under these laws belonged to elderly Black homeowners who had owned their property for decades. People who had built equity over a lifetime. Gone. Now you understand why this Supreme Court case mattered so much. It wasn't just about Geraldine Tyler. It was about justice for hundreds of thousands of Americans who had no idea that the system was designed to take from them. Here's where it gets even more personal. Because this ruling, as important as it is, does not automatically fix everything. It does not automatically give back the equity that was already taken. It does not automatically force states to rewrite their laws overnight. What it does is give you a weapon, a constitutional weapon, and you need to know how to use it. First, let's talk about who is most at risk right now, even after this ruling. If you own property and you are behind on your property taxes, even by a small amount, you need to act immediately. Do not assume that because the Supreme Court ruled, you are automatically protected. Laws take time to change. Enforcement can be uneven. Some counties may still attempt aggressive collection tactics while new legal frameworks are being sorted out. Here is what this looks like in real life. You own a home worth $180,000. You hit a hard patch. a medical emergency, a job loss, a death in the family. You fall behind on your property taxes. The amount owed grows to $8,000 with penalties. In many states, that was enough to trigger a seizure process. Now, under the new constitutional standard established by Tyler versus Hennepin County, the government cannot simply take your home and keep everything above what you owe. They have to give you back the equity. But you have to know that. You have to be able to assert that right. And if you don't know it exists, it cannot help you. That is why I am telling you this today. Let's talk about the practical consequences of this decision, the ripple effects that are still unfolding right now across all 50 states. Number 1, state legislatures are being forced to rewrite their property tax enforcement laws. This is already happening in multiple states. Some states already had laws that were compliant with the Constitution. They would only collect what was owed and return the surplus to the homeowner. But in the states that did not have those protections, legislators are now scrambling. This is a multi-year legal and legislative process. And until it's complete, the situation on the ground may still be confusing and even dangerous for homeowners. Number 2, legal challenges are multiplying. Attorneys across the country are filing lawsuits on behalf of homeowners who lost their equity before the Tyler ruling came down. Some of these cases are seeking compensation for equity that was taken years ago. These are class action suits, individual suits, appeals. It is an enormous wave of legal activity. And the outcomes will determine how much money gets returned to ordinary Americans who were wronged. Number 3, property investors who profited from home equity theft are now exposed. Companies that bought up tax debt with the specific intent of profiting from homeowner equity, they are now potentially liable. Some of these companies have already begun changing their business models. Others are facing lawsuits. This is a significant disruption to an industry that built itself on a practice the Supreme Court just declared unconstitutional. Number 4, awareness is rising. Cases like Geraldine Tyler's are now being taught in law schools. They are being cited in courtrooms. They are becoming part of the national conversation about property rights in America. And that awareness is the best protection you have. Now, I want to speak directly to a very specific group of people who may be watching this right now. If you are 60 years old or older and you own your home, this section is especially for you. Elderly homeowners are the most targeted demographic when it comes to property tax issues. Not because they are careless, but because fixed incomes, Social Security checks, pension payments, retirement savings do not always keep pace with rising property tax bills. In many parts of the country, property taxes have increased significantly over the last decade as home values have gone up. But your Social Security check did not go up at the same rate. And that gap between what you owe the county and what you can comfortably pay, is exactly where these predatory systems operated. Here's something I want you to genuinely think about. Do you know exactly how much your property taxes are? Do you know when they are due? Do you know whether you are current? Do you know whether your county or state offers any exemptions or deferrals for seniors or low-income homeowners? Because here's what many people don't realize. Most states offer senior homestead exemptions. Some states allow seniors to defer property taxes until their home is sold. Some states cap how much property taxes can increase per year for long-term homeowners. These programs exist, but you have to apply for them. They do not come automatically. And if you are not getting the benefits you qualify for, you may be paying more than you legally have to, or falling behind when you don't need to be. The Tyler ruling is the headline, but the real story, the story that protects you right now today, is knowing what rights and programs you are entitled to. Let me give you something concrete, something you can do this week to make sure you are protected. Step 1. Find out exactly where you stand on your property taxes. Go to your county assessor's office website. Almost every county in the country has one. And look up your property tax account. Make sure you are current. If you are behind, find out the exact amount and the deadline to bring it current. Step 2. Find out what exemptions or relief programs exist in your state. Search for Senior Homestead Exemption plus your state name. Search for Property Tax Relief Program plus your state. You may be surprised how much help is available that you simply did not know about. Step 3. If you believe you have already been wrongly affected by home equity theft, if you or a family member lost a home to property tax seizure and the proceeds were kept by the government or a private investor, consult a property rights attorney. Many of these attorneys are now taking these cases on contingency, meaning you don't pay unless they win. The Tyler ruling gives you a constitutional argument. Use it. Step 4, tell someone. Tell your neighbor, tell your brother, tell your children. Tell the person in your church or your community group who you know is struggling financially and owns property. Because the one thing that makes this whole system work against ordinary people is silence and ignorance. The moment you share this information, you are breaking that cycle. Step 5. Watch your mail carefully. Notices about property tax delinquency, tax liens, or government proceedings related to your property are time sensitive. If you get something that you don't understand, do not ignore it. Get help immediately. Contact your county office, a legal aid organization, or a property attorney. The deadlines in these cases can be brutal, and missing them can cost you everything. Here is the broader lesson that I want you to carry with you from this video. Beyond the specific case of Geraldine Tyler and the Tyler versus Hennepin County ruling, the systems that govern your property, your finances, and your legal rights in this country are not always designed to protect you. Sometimes they are designed in ways that make it very easy for the government or well-funded private interests to take advantage of people who simply do not know the rules. The good news, and this is genuinely good news, is that the Constitution still works. 9 justices looked at what Hennepin County did to a 93-year-old woman. 9 justices, with very different political philosophies, from very different backgrounds, who disagree on almost everything. They all agreed that this was wrong, that it was unconstitutional, that it could not stand. That is the American legal system working the way it is supposed to work. And it is a reminder that when ordinary people fight, when they refuse to be silenced, when they take their case all the way to the highest court in the land, they can win. Geraldine Tyler won. And because of her courage, every homeowner in America is safer today than they were before she took her case to court. But winning in court is only the beginning, because if you don't know about the ruling, you cannot benefit from it. That is the gap. That is the hole in the system. And filling that hole with real information, shared person to person, community to community, that is what this channel is about. That is what this video is about. Now let me bring this home with something that might make you feel the weight of what we've been talking about in a very personal way. Imagine you have spent 40 years paying your mortgage. You have painted every room, fixed every leak, planted a garden in the backyard, watched your children grow up in that house. The mortgage is paid off. The home is yours. You are proud of it. It is not just a financial asset. It is your life's work in physical form. Now imagine that one year you get sick. The medical bills pile up. You fall behind on your property taxes. You are talking with your doctor about your treatment plan. You are managing medications. You are trying to keep your life together. The tax bill slips through the cracks. And because you didn't know, because nobody told you, the county quietly begins a process that ends with you losing that home, losing those 40 years of equity, losing the place your grandchildren were going to visit on holidays. That is not a hypothetical. That is exactly what happened to people across this country. And it was legal until Geraldine Tyler said no. She was 93. She was alone. She had less money and less power than the county government and the lawyers they employed to fight her. But she said no, and 9 justices agreed with her. That is why this decision matters. Not just as a legal precedent, but as a statement about who this country is supposed to be for. So what happens next? Where does this go from here? Legal experts who specialize in property rights believe that the Tyler ruling is just the beginning of a long process of reform. Several class action lawsuits are currently working their way through the courts, seeking compensation for homeowners who were victimized before the ruling. State legislators are being pressured by property rights advocates to pass clear, protective laws that ensure the constitutional standard is not just theoretically in place, but practically enforced. There is also growing attention on the role of private investors in the property tax collection system. Organizations are calling for federal legislation that would set clear, nationwide standards for how unpaid property taxes are collected and what rights homeowners have throughout that process. Some members of Congress have expressed interest in addressing this issue at the federal level, and individual homeowners, people just like you, are beginning to understand that they have rights they did not know about. That understanding is the most powerful force in this entire equation. Knowledge is protection. And right now, most people still do not have it. That brings me to you, and what you do with the next 2 minutes after this video ends. I want to be completely direct with you right now. This channel, this community, exists because there is a massive gap between the information that ordinary Americans need and the information they actually receive. The big news networks are not going to lead with a Supreme Court ruling about property tax equity. They are going to cover whatever generates the most clicks, the most outrage, the most advertising revenue. And a 93-year-old woman from Minnesota winning a constitutional case about home equity theft is not that story. Not to them. But to you, if you own property, if you have a parent who owns property, if you have a neighbor who owns property, if you are planning to buy a home one day in this country, this is one of the most important legal decisions of the last decade. And you deserve to know about it. This channel is built for people like you. People who are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. People who have worked hard, built something, and want to protect it. People who understand that staying informed is not just interesting, it is essential. People who know that the decisions being made in courtrooms and government offices right now will directly affect their lives, their finances, and their families for years to come. If that is you, then this channel was made for you. And every time we post a new video, it will be exactly this kind of content. Real, important, actionable information that most people miss. So here is what I need you to do right now. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe. Hit that button right now. Turn on your notifications. Because we post new updates regularly, and every single one of them has the potential to protect you, your money, or your rights in some way. Missing this channel is not just missing videos. It is missing information that could cost you money, cost you legal trouble, or cost you the equity you have spent a lifetime building. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and don't miss what's coming next. And before I let you go, please share this video. Think of one person in your life right now who owns a home and is over 60. Think of one person who has struggled financially in the last few years. Think of one person who you know would never have found this information on their own. Send them this video. Share it to your Facebook. Post it in your family group chat. Text it to your neighbor. This information could save someone's home. It could give someone the ability to fight for equity that was wrongly taken from them. It could simply give someone peace of mind because they finally understand their rights. One share. That is all it takes. And you might be the reason someone's home stays in their family. Geraldine Tyler was 93 years old when she decided to fight. She did not give up. She did not accept that the system was too big to challenge. She went all the way to the Supreme Court. And she won. You can fight too. You can protect yourself. You can protect the people you love. But first, you have to know. And now you do. Stay informed. Stay protected. And we will see you in the next video.